Very good morning, dear Class 8. Please take out your novel, A Tale of Two Cities, written by Charles Dickens. My dear students, in our previous video, we finished with chapter number 1, that is Recall to Life. And in this video, we are going to start with chapter number 2, The Shoemaker. And after finishing chapter 2, we are going to complete the question answers of both the chapters. Children, before I begin the chapter number 2, The Shoemaker, I would just like to remind you about the previous chapter that we finished with the note where Miss Pross accompanies Lucy Manette as well as Mr. Lorry to Paris in order to bring back Dr. Manette. Now let's begin with this chapter. I'll read as well as explain you each word, okay, as well as the sentence, right? So you will have to underline the way I have underlined in my book so that you remember, and it's not a difficult time for you to read the text on your own. Now this is chapter number 2, The Shoemaker. Some days after Miss Manette and Jarvis Lorry's meeting, something happened in the district of Saint-Antoine in Paris. A barrel of red wine fell on the back of a cart onto the paved road and cracked open. So this is like after, this is the incident which occurred some days after the meeting which took place between Miss Manette and Jarvis Lorry. Okay, so what had happened and in which place had this incident taken place? Okay, this is district of Saint-Antoine in Paris. Now what had happened over here? A barrel of red wine. What is that barrel? Barrel means a large container of red wine fell off. That means fell down from the back of the cart onto the paved road. What is paved road? Paved road is a concrete road and cracked open. Okay, the barrel, this container of red wine, it fell down from the cart and it cracked open. As the wine poured through the street, a scarecrow of a man in bare feet and rags shouted, "Wine! Red wine!" and threw himself on the ground, struggling to collect what he could in the cupped palm of his hand. And I believe you can, visualize what in the words, through these words you can visualize the scene. Okay, what happened? When the barrel of red wine, it fell down on the road, it cracked open, and as the wine poured through the street, a scarecrow. Now what is a scarecrow? It's a figure of a person dressed in old clothes. It is usually seen in the middle of the field to scare away the crows. So such a man who looked like a scarecrow, he was bare feet. He was not wearing anything on his feet, and his clothes were merely rags. Rags are old, torn clothes. So this man was in this disposition, and when he saw the barrel of wine falling down and the wine pouring through the street, he shouted, "Wine, red wine!" and he threw himself on the ground. And what did he do? He started struggling to collect the wine into his cupped palm. Cupped palm is a palm, okay, a palm of your hand, okay, and it's cupped over here means to form a shape of a cup. So he started collecting the wine in his palm. Out of nowhere, dozens more scarecrows appeared, also in the rags and bare feet. They too fell fell to the ground and knelt in the filth of the street. What is filth of the street? Filth is dirt of the street. To gather up flowing wine in their blackened hands. They were so dirty. Okay, their hands were almost black because they were the workers. Okay, so what did they do? When they saw the wine on the street, they cupped their palms and started collecting it in their hands. With desperation, they sucked every drop they could onto their poor mouths. Desperation is the extreme condition when you are hopeless. Okay, so they must not have had a sip of wine for so many days, so many years. So therefore, how they desperately, threw themselves on the streets to collect the wine which flowing through the street. After the street had been wiped clean of the wine, their dark faces now stained red. Their faces were dark because they were the workers. They had been working, and now they were stained. Their faces were stained red. Took on a frightening look. So as they had having taken the taste of the wine, now all of a sudden they took on a frightening look. So their look appeared to be frightening, as they were already dark colored, and now their faces were stained red because of the wine which they had sucked. Okay, and they looked very horrible. Okay, like starving dogs that had their first taste of blood and would stop at nothing to get more. So their appearance, they looked like a starving dog. A starving dog is a hungry dog who has not eaten for days, and now he has tasted blood. So that red wine appeared like a blood on their faces, and they are over here in this line, they are compared to starving dogs, right? One man sacrificed his last drops of wine to scribble the word blood on the wall. So out of all these poor people, one man, what did he do? He sacrificed his last drops of wine. And what did he do? To write something on the wall. And what did he write on the wall? BLOOD, blood. In a cafe on the corner of the street, the owner, Monsieur Defarge, this M Defarge, M means Monsieur. So Monsieur is a French word for Mr. Okay, so Monsieur Defarge was standing by the counter talking to three men. So in the next page, in the picture, you can see this man is Defarge. Okay, and this is his cafe, and he's standing along with three friends of his with whom he is discussing something, right? Defarge was a large man in his early 30s, with a heavy chin and determined dark eyes. At the end of the counter, Madame Defarge, his wife, a large lady of about the same age, sat knitting. She knitted fast without looking at the needles. Her watchful eyes, watchful means her observant eyes, her alert eyes, taking in everything. Taking in everything means she was noticing each and everything that was happening around her shop. Okay, in and around her shop. She noted all the people sitting at the tables, the regular customers, the men playing dominoes, and the older gentleman sitting in one corner beside a beautiful girl. So here you can see through these lines you can write the character sketch of Defarge, right? And from these words, she knitted fast without looking at the needles. We are talking about, in these lines, we are talking about Madame Defarge. As I told you, MME is Madame Defarge, or in French, Madame is called Mademoiselle. You can just write this MADEMOISELLE if I am correctly spelling it out. So Mademoiselle is a French word for Madame, right? So through this picture you can very well find out this Madame over here. It's a counter over here of a cafe. Defarge, Monsieur Defarge is standing with three men. He's talking to three men. And here we have Madame Defarge, who is busy knitting. Her eyes, though she's knitting, but her eyes are not on her knitting needle. Okay, and she's been observing each and everybody who are there, who are present in and around the cafe. So have a close look. Therefore, what do we assess? That Madame Defarge was really expert in knitting. Okay. Now children, come to next page, that is page number 24. Okay. Now Defarge and the three men, all of whom shared the code name Jacques. So what does it mean? These three men who were standing with Defarge and were talking to Defarge, they had one name only, and their code name was Jacks. They called themselves Jack 1, Jacks 2, Jacks 3. That is how they had a secret name. Right? Now, all these three men were discussing what had just occurred in the street. It's not often that these miserable beasts, now who these miserable beasts are? These miserable beasts refer to the common people, the common people who were very desperate to have a sip of wine, okay, have a taste of wine, said one of the men. Defarge nodded in sad agreement. So they were really, they felt disgusted to see the scene there, that how the men were really in desperate state to have a sip of wine. They did not even mind sucking from the road. So Jacks, the room. The room. Yes, on the 5th floor. Can you find your own way? Okay, now they started, out of these, the first day were discussing the people in the street, that after then one of them changed the topic, Jacks, the room. So the one which room, now we'll come to know in the next few lines. He says that, yes, the room is on the 5th floor. Can you find your own way? Yes, one of us had been there before. When they left, the older gentleman came up to Defarge and asked to speak to him. So over here, they had some mission there. So we are not told over here what they were discussing, which room they were discussing, but some room they were discussing that was on the 5th floor. Now over here, after the three men, they leave, the older gentleman refers to Mr. Lorry. He comes to Defarge and speaks to him. He led the gentleman over to a dark corner to talk. Not long after that, the gentleman refers to Mr. Lorry, who was, of course, Jarvis Lorry, gestured to the young lady to go to the door. Gestured is, without speaking, he made a signal to the young lady. Who this young lady was? Miss Manette. That he just signaled her to go to the door. The three of them, and who would these three people were? These three people who